Iroquois' model of democracy would later influence the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, establishing the most powerful and longest-running democratic constitutional republic in the world, the United States of America. Such movements for freedom, enshrined in these most cherished and sacred documents, would tap into a universal truth: humankind's divine right to be free. In the words of U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the democratic aspiration is no mere recent phase in human history. It is human history. It permeated the ancient life of early peoples. It blazed anew in the Middle Ages. It was written in the Magna Carta. And yet, despite the fact that the democratic aspiration, as Roosevelt put it, is thousands of years old, the true promise of democracy has not yet penetrated where it can make the most difference in our daily lives, namely, in the way we work. Nearly 800 years after the Barons' triumph at Runnymede, Kent was confronted with the biggest leadership challenge of his life. The Harvard MBA had just agreed to turn around a large healthcare company that was anything but healthy itself. He was about to impact thousands of customers, shareholders, and employees and their families all over the world. Little did he know then that the organization would one day become a thriving Fortune 500 company, and he and the organization would become a case study of exemplary leadership for top business schools. Yet, at that point, the company's future was anything but guaranteed. They were rapidly losing cash, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and under investigation by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Shareholders were suing. Morale was at an all-time low. Executives were either being fired or quitting. As Kent later shared, if a single bank had asked for a single dollar, the company might have gone under. It was a brutally negative place. People were angry and scared. He had been hired to lead everyone out of the fear and chaos, but how would he do it? Most leaders, when faced with circumstances that must be turned around, resort to a top-down, fear and control style of leadership that can leave carnage and resentment in its wake. This style may be effective in the short term, but hardly ever wins the long game. Faced with worry, stress, and expectations of success, many leaders can't mentally pivot out of their own fears to think from a different leadership paradigm altogether. Despite the pressure to conform to a tyrannical slash-and-burn leadership style typical of most turnaround CEOs, Kent had a different philosophy altogether. He envisioned an organization filled not with dejected, traumatized, and demoralized employees who were just mentally renting space each day, but with engaged, joyous, and purposeful citizens. To build this democratic community first, and a company second, as he later explained it, he himself would have to resist the pull towards centralized leadership. He could only realize this vision if he led in a very different way, if he led democratically. But would his employees follow? When Kent announced his vision for how he wanted to turn the company around, about a third of its leaders and employees thought the idea was ridiculous and that it would take a Herculean effort just to make payroll that month. Another third thought it was a nice idea, but that a democratic leadership style would eventually buckle under the severity of the problems they faced. I would go back to my hotel room at night in those early days and cry, wondering if I was on the right path, the CEO would later share at his annual leadership event. What exactly is this democratic leadership style Kent hoped to implement? The term democracy comes from the Greek words demos, the people, and kratein, to rule. The essence of democracy is